She walked into that cafe broken, powerful, and completely alone. He was just a tired single father trying to give his daughter one good morning. What happened next wasn't a fairy tale. It was messier, harder, and more real than either of them expected. A story about choosing to trust again when everything you've built could still fall apart. If you stay with me until the end, I promise you'll see why some connections are worth the risk. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The snow came down in Chicago the way it always did in late January, steady, indifferent, turning the morning gray before the sun had a real chance. Ethan Cole stood at the kitchen counter of his small apartment, pouring cereal into 2 bowls while his daughter sat at the table, swinging her legs and humming something he didn't recognize. She was 6. Everything she did had music in it. "Dad, you forgot the milk again." He glanced at the bowls, then at the empty space on the counter where the milk should have been. "Right, sorry." "It's okay, you're tired." Ethan smiled, the kind that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Yeah, a little." Mia had a way of seeing through him that unnerved him sometimes. She was too young to carry that kind of awareness, but she did it anyway, like she'd been born knowing how to read the weight people carried. He poured the milk, set the carton down, and joined her at the table. "Can we go to the cafe today?" she asked, not looking up from her cereal. "We go every Saturday." "I know, but can we?" "Yeah, we can." She grinned, and Ethan felt something loosen in his chest. Saturdays had become their anchor. No matter how chaotic the week got, work deadlines, school pickups, late-night homework battles, Saturday mornings were theirs. The cafe on the corner of 5th and Monroe. 2 hot chocolates, 1 black coffee, a shared blueberry muffin. The same table by the window if they got there early enough. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. By the time they left the apartment, the snow had thickened. Mia held his hand as they walked, her bright red coat a small burst of color against the white-gray world around them. The cafe was only 3 blocks away, but the cold made it feel longer. Ethan's breath fogged in front of him, and Mia chattered the whole way, telling him about a drawing she'd made in school, something with dragons and castles and a princess who didn't need rescuing. "She rescues herself," Mia said firmly. "Good for her. And she has a sword." "Even better." The cafe was warm when they stepped inside, the kind of warmth that wrapped around you and made you forget the cold existed. It smelled like coffee and butter and cinnamon, and the hiss of the espresso machine blended with low conversation and the scrape of chair legs on tile. Ethan scanned the room. Their table was open. "We got it," Mia whispered, tugging his hand. "We did." They ordered at the counter, same as always, and settled into their spot. Mia pressed her face against the window, watching the snow pile up on the sidewalk outside. Ethan sipped his coffee and let the noise of the cafe fade into background static. This was the part he needed, the quiet that wasn't really quiet, the feeling of being somewhere without needing to explain himself. And then the door opened. Ethan didn't look up right away. People came and went. But something made him glance toward the entrance, maybe the way the cold air rushed in, sharper than before, or the way the woman standing there didn't move for a long moment, like she wasn't sure she belonged. She was tall, even leaning on the crutch. Dark coat, tailored but worn at the edges. Her hair was pulled back, a few strands loose around her face. She looked like someone who'd stopped caring about looking perfect, but hadn't quite figured out what came after that. Her eyes swept the cafe, landing on tables already full, groups huddled close. No empty seats in sight. Ethan watched her. She didn't ask anyone, didn't approach the counter, just stood there, and he could see it. The moment she decided to leave. "Dad?" He looked at Mia. She was watching the woman too. "She doesn't have a seat." "I know. We have extra chairs." Ethan hesitated. It wasn't that he didn't want to help. It was that he'd learned over the past few years to keep things simple. Don't get involved, don't let people in. It was easier that way, safer. But Mia was already waving. "Miss, you can sit here." The woman turned. For a second, she looked like she might ignore it, might pretend she hadn't heard. But then her eyes found Mia's, and something in her face shifted. Not quite a smile. Just less guarded. She walked over, slower than she probably wanted to, the crutch clicking softly against the floor. Up close, Ethan could see the exhaustion carved into her features, not just from a bad night's sleep, the kind that built up over months, maybe years. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice low, careful. "We're sure," Mia said before Ethan could answer. The woman glanced at him. Ethan nodded. "It's fine. Sit." She did, lowering herself into the chair with the kind of control that came from practice. She set the crutch against the table, adjusted her coat, and folded her hands in her lap. For a moment, no one spoke. "I'm Mia," his daughter announced. "That's my dad. His name is Ethan." "Victoria," the woman said. She didn't offer more than that. "Do you want some of our muffin?" Mia pushed the plate toward her. "We always get blueberry, but we never finish it." "Mia, it's okay, Dad, we don't." Victoria looked at the muffin, then at Mia, and something in her expression cracked just a little. "Thank you, but I'm fine." "Are you sure? It's really good." "I'm sure." Mia shrugged and went back to her hot chocolate, apparently satisfied. Ethan picked up his coffee, trying to figure out what to say. He wasn't good at small talk. Never had been. But sitting in silence felt heavier than it should have. "Cold out there," he said, finally. Victoria nodded. "Yeah. You from Chicago?" "I am now." It wasn't an answer, but Ethan didn't push. He could tell she wasn't interested in explaining herself, and honestly, he didn't need her to. They sat there, the three of them, while the cafe hummed around them. Mia kept glancing at Victoria like she was trying to figure her out, and Victoria kept her eyes on the window, watching the snow fall. After a while, Victoria spoke. "Thank you. For the seat." "No problem." Most people don't notice. Ethan didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. He understood what she meant, though. People looked past things all the time. It was easier than stopping. Mia, oblivious to the weight of the conversation, started telling Victoria about her dragon drawing. Victoria listened, actually listened, and asked questions that weren't just polite. She seemed genuinely curious, and Mia ate it up, talking faster and faster until Ethan had to remind her to breathe. When their drinks were gone and the muffin was reduced to crumbs, Victoria stood. She reached for her crutch, steadied herself, and looked at Ethan. "I appreciate this. It's just a chair." "Still?" She turned to Mia. "Good luck with your dragon." "Thanks. Maybe you'll see it next time." Victoria paused. "Next time?" "We're here every Saturday," Mia said. "Same table." Ethan opened his mouth to say something. What, he wasn't sure, but Victoria was already nodding. "Maybe," she said, and then she was gone. The door closing behind her, the cold rushing in one more time before it settled. Mia looked at Ethan. "I like her." "You just met her." "I know, but I do." Ethan didn't argue. He'd learned a long time ago that Mia's instincts were sharper than his. They stayed a little longer, finishing the last of their drinks, watching the snow pile higher on the sidewalk. When they finally left, Ethan found himself glancing back at the cafe, half expecting to see Victoria still standing there. But she wasn't. Just snow and cold and the same gray morning. The week that followed was unremarkable. Work swallowed Monday through Friday, meetings, emails, deadlines that never seemed to end. Ethan managed a small logistics company, the kind of job that paid the bills but didn't leave much room for anything else. He picked Mia up from school every day at 3:30, helped her with homework, made dinners that were passable at best, and fell into bed too late every night. By the time Saturday rolled around again, he was ready for the cafe, ready for the routine. Mia was up before him, already dressed, bouncing on the edge of his bed. "Dad, Dad, wake up!" "I'm awake." "We're going to be late." "We're not going to be late." But they almost were. Ethan overslept, and by the time they got out the door, the cafe was already crowded. Their table was taken. Mia's face fell. "It's okay," Ethan said. "We'll grab another one." They found a spot near the back, smaller, tucked between two other tables. It wasn't the same, but Mia didn't complain. She ordered her hot chocolate and started talking about school, something about a substitute teacher who let them have extra recess. Ethan was only half listening when he saw her. Victoria. She was at the counter ordering something, her crutch propped against her side. She looked the same as last week, tired, guarded, like she was bracing for something. When she turned with her coffee in hand, her eyes scanned the room, and Ethan realized she was looking for them. Mia saw her too. "Miss Victoria!" Victoria's gaze landed on their table, and for a second she hesitated. Then she walked over. "Hey," she said. "Hi," Mia beamed. "We're at a different table today. Someone took ours." "I see that." Ethan gestured to the empty chair. "You can sit, if you want." Victoria looked at him, then at Mia, then at the chair. "You sure?" "Yeah." She sat. This time, the silence wasn't as heavy. Mia filled it easily, asking Victoria about her week, telling her about the substitute teacher and the extra recess. Victoria answered in short sentences, but she didn't brush Mia off. She met her energy halfway, and Ethan found himself relaxing, just a little. "Do you work on Saturdays?" Mia asked. "Sometimes." "That's sad." Victoria's mouth twitched. "Yeah, it kind of is." "What do you do?" "I run a company." "Like my dad?" "Sort of, but bigger." Mia's eyes widened. "Wow, are you the boss?" "I am." "That's so cool." Victoria didn't respond right away. She just looked at Mia, and Ethan saw something shift in her expression, something softer. "It has its moments," she said finally. They stayed longer than usual. The conversation drifted. Nothing deep, just small things. Mia's school, Victoria's coffee order, the snow that wouldn't stop falling. When it was time to go, Victoria stood, and this time she didn't look like she was in a hurry to leave. "Same time next week?" Mia asked. Victoria glanced at Ethan. He nodded. "Yeah," Victoria said. "Same time." It became a pattern. Every Saturday, Victoria showed up. Sometimes she was already there when they arrived. Sometimes she came in late, scanning the café until she found them. She never said much at first, but over the weeks, the walls started to come down. Ethan learned things in pieces. She lived alone in a high-rise downtown. She didn't have family in Chicago. She worked too much, even by her own admission. The crutch wasn't temporary, it was permanent, the result of an accident she didn't talk about. Mia adored her. She brought drawings to show her, asked her opinion on everything from favorite colors to whether dragons could be friends with unicorns. Victoria answered every question seriously, like Mia's thoughts mattered more than anything else in the world. Ethan found himself looking forward to Saturdays in a way he hadn't in a long time. Not just for Mia, for himself. One morning, about a month in, Mia excused herself to go to the bathroom, leaving Ethan and Victoria alone at the table. The silence stretched, but it wasn't uncomfortable. "She's a good kid," Victoria said. "She is." "You're doing something right." Ethan shook his head. "I'm just trying not to screw it up." "That's more than a lot of people do." He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something he hadn't noticed before. She wasn't just tired, she was lonely. "You don't have to keep coming," he said. "I mean, you can, but you don't have to." Victoria's eyes met his. "I know." "So why do you?" She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was quieter. "Because I don't have anywhere else I want to be." Ethan didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. Mia came back, and the moment passed. But something had shifted. Not big, not obvious, just there. By the time February hit, Victoria had become a fixture. She knew their order. She knew Mia's favorite seat by the window. She knew that Ethan took his coffee black and always left a little at the bottom of the cup because he hated the last sip when it was cold. She started opening up, bit by bit. She told them about her company, something in tech, venture capital, funding startups that were either going to change the world or crash spectacularly. She talked about the pressure, the long hours, the board meetings that felt like battles. And one Saturday, she told them about the accident. Mia was coloring at the table, humming to herself. And Ethan had just asked Victoria how her week had been. She'd been quiet, more so than usual, and he could tell something was weighing on her. "It was the anniversary," she said. Ethan frowned. "Of what?" "The accident." He didn't push, just waited. 4 years ago, Victoria continued, her eyes on the window. "I was in a car with my parents and my younger brother. We were coming back from a weekend trip. Someone ran a red light." Her voice didn't shake. It was steady, almost detached, like she'd told the story enough times that it didn't hurt anymore. But Ethan could see the lie in that. They didn't make it, she said. I did. Barely. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. Victoria. I lost my leg. Spent a year in physical therapy, another year figuring out how to live again. She paused. And then I just kept going. Built the company. Focused on work. Didn't let myself stop. Because stopping meant feeling it, Ethan said quietly. She looked at him, and for the first time, he saw her guard drop completely. Yeah. Mia looked up from her coloring. I'm sorry that happened to you. Victoria's throat worked. Thank you. Do you miss them? Every day. Mia nodded, like that made perfect sense. That's okay. You're allowed to. Victoria's eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. She just reached across the table and squeezed Mia's hand. Ethan didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Sometimes the best thing you could do was just sit with someone while they carried their grief. March came, and with it, a thaw. The snow melted, leaving the streets wet and gray. The cafe felt different in the new light. Brighter. Less like a refuge and more like a place where things could grow. Victoria started staying longer. She'd linger after they finished their drinks, talking about things that didn't matter and things that did. She told Ethan about a deal that had fallen through, about a startup founder who'd lied to her face. He told her about Mia's school play, about the stress of keeping his business afloat, about the quiet fear that he wasn't enough for his daughter. You are, Victoria said one Saturday. You don't know that. I do. I see it. Ethan looked at her and something passed between them. Something unspoken, but undeniable. Mia noticed it too. She started asking when Victoria was coming over for dinner, why she didn't just stay with them all day, if she wanted to come to her school play. Mia, that's not... Ethan started. I'd love to, Victoria said. Ethan blinked. You would? If it's okay with you. It was more than okay. But Ethan didn't know how to say that without sounding like he was asking for more than she was offering. Yeah, he said. It's okay. The play was terrible in the way all elementary school plays were terrible. Kids forgetting lines, props falling over, costumes that didn't quite fit. But Mia was a tree in the enchanted forest, and she stood perfectly still for her entire scene, and Ethan had never been more proud. Victoria sat next to him in the audience, and when Mia took her bow, she clapped louder than anyone else. Afterward, they went out for ice cream. Mia talked non-stop, replaying every moment of the play, and Victoria listened like it was the most important performance she'd ever seen. Ethan drove them home, and when they pulled up to Victoria's building, she didn't get out right away. Thank you, she said. For what? For letting me be part of this. Ethan looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, he felt something other than tired. You don't have to thank me for that. She smiled, small but real, and got out of the car. As he drove away, Mia said, I really like her, Dad. I know. Do you? Ethan glanced at his daughter in the rearview mirror. Yeah, I do. April brought warmth, and with it, a shift. Victoria started texting between Saturdays, just small things. A photo of her coffee, a question about Mia's homework, a complaint about a meeting that had run too long. Ethan found himself looking forward to those texts more than he wanted to admit. One Friday night, she called. Hey, she said when he picked up. Is this a bad time? No, Mia's asleep. What's up? She trailed off. I don't know. I had a rough day. You want to talk about it? Not really. I just didn't want to be alone. Ethan leaned back against the couch. You're not. They stayed on the phone for over an hour. She told him about the deal that had fallen apart, about the investor who'd pulled out at the last minute, about the fear that she was building something that would eventually collapse. He told her about the contract he'd lost, about the client who'd gone with someone cheaper, about the worry that he was one bad month away from losing everything. We're a mess, Victoria said, half laughing. Yeah, we really are. But we're trying. We are. When they finally hung up, Ethan sat in the dark for a long time, staring at his phone. The next Saturday, Victoria was already at the cafe when they arrived. She'd gotten their drinks, 2 hot chocolates, 1 black coffee. She'd even ordered the muffin. Mia ran to her, throwing her arms around Victoria's waist. Victoria hugged her back, and Ethan saw something in her face he hadn't seen before. Peace. They sat, and the conversation flowed easier than it ever had. Mia showed Victoria a new drawing, this time a castle with a dragon and a princess with a sword. Victoria studied it seriously, asking questions about the dragon's name and whether the princess had any friends. She has one, Mia said. A knight. But he's kind of scared of dragons. That's okay, Victoria said. Knights are allowed to be scared. Ethan caught her eye across the table. She smiled, and he smiled back. It was such a small moment, but it felt like everything. By the time May arrived, the cafe had become more than just a Saturday ritual. It had become the place where they made sense, where Ethan didn't have to pretend he had everything together, where Victoria didn't have to be the untouchable CEO, where Mia could just be a kid who loved dragons and ice cream and people who listened to her. One Saturday, as they were leaving, Mia grabbed both their hands. "This is my favorite part of the week," she said. Ethan looked at Victoria. She was looking back at him. "Mine too," Victoria said softly. And Ethan realized with a clarity that almost hurt that it was his too. But he also knew that things this good didn't last. Not for people like him, not without something breaking first. He just didn't know what it would be. What Ethan didn't expect was how quickly normal could start to feel like something more. It happened in pieces, so small he almost didn't notice at first. Victoria started showing up on weekdays. Not to the cafe, to pick Mia up from school when Ethan got stuck in a meeting that ran late. The first time he'd called her in a panic, his phone pressed between his ear and shoulder while he tried to pull up spreadsheets on his laptop. "I know this is asking a lot. I'll be there in 20 minutes, Victoria had said, cutting him off. "What's her teacher's name?" "Ms. Rodriguez." "But Victoria, you don't have to—" "Ethan, I'll be there." When he'd finally made it to the school an hour later, guilt eating at him, he'd found Mia and Victoria sitting on the front steps, sharing a bag of pretzels. Mia was in the middle of some elaborate story involving a substitute teacher and a hamster that had escaped during silent reading, and Victoria was listening like it was the most riveting thing she'd ever heard. "Hey, Bug," Ethan said, crouching down in front of his daughter. "I'm so sorry I'm late." "It's okay, Miss Victoria got me pretzels." He looked up at Victoria. She shrugged. "There's a bodega across the street." "You didn't have to do this." "I know." Something in the way she said it made him stop, not defensive, just factual, like she'd wanted to be there. "Thank you," he said. "Don't mention it." But he did mention it. That night, after Mia was asleep, he texted her, "I owe you." Her response came a few minutes later. "You don't. But if you're offering, I could use help with something. Name it. My lease is up next month. I'm looking at apartments." "I have no idea what I'm doing." Ethan stared at his phone. Victoria Hale, CEO, venture capitalist, woman who commanded boardrooms and made million-dollar decisions before breakfast, had no idea how to look at apartments. "You want help?" "If you have time." "Yeah, I have time." They went the following Saturday. Mia came with them, turning it into an adventure, running through empty rooms and declaring which one would be her bedroom if she lived there. The realtor looked mildly horrified every time Mia touched something, but Victoria didn't seem to care. She'd crouch down next to Mia, ask her opinion on the view, the closet space, whether the kitchen was big enough for pancakes. By the third apartment, Ethan realized Victoria wasn't actually looking for his advice. She was looking for Mia's. "You're letting a 6-year-old pick your apartment," he said quietly, while Mia sprinted down the hallway to check out the second bedroom. "She has good instincts." "She also thinks unicorns are real," Victoria smiled. "Maybe they are." They ended up in a place in Lincoln Park, smaller than her high-rise downtown, but with actual windows that opened and a kitchen that didn't feel like a showroom. Mia had declared it perfect because the bedroom had a window seat, and Victoria had signed the lease that afternoon. 2 weeks later, Ethan found himself holding one end of a couch while Victoria directed him through her new front door. Mia supervised from the hallway, offering extremely unhelpful commentary. "A little to the left." "No, your other left, Dad." "I know which left is which," Ethan grunted, muscles screaming. "Doesn't look like it," Victoria said from the other end of the couch, and he could hear the smirk in her voice. "You're both terrible." They got the couch in eventually. spent the rest of the afternoon unpacking boxes, ordering pizza, letting Mia arrange books on the shelves in whatever order made sense to her. By the time the sun started to set, the apartment looked lived in. Not perfect, but real. Victoria stood in the middle of her living room, hands on her hips, surveying the chaos. "I don't know what I'm doing." "You're doing fine," Ethan said. "I've never had a place that felt like this." "Like what?" She looked at him. "Like I could stay." Something in Ethan's chest tightened. He wanted to say something, to tell her she could stay as long as she wanted, that she didn't have to keep running. But Mia chose that moment to announce she'd found a spider in the bathroom, and the moment passed. That night, after he'd gotten Mia home and into bed, Victoria texted him a photo. The window seat in her bedroom, a blanket draped over it, a book sitting open on the cushion. Mia was right. This is perfect. Ethan stared at the photo longer than he should have. Then he typed back, "Told you she has good instincts. So do you." He didn't know what to say to that, so he just sent back a thumbs up emoji and hated himself a little for it. The weeks started to blur together after that. Victoria became a constant. She'd show up at Mia's soccer games, cheering from the sidelines, even though Mia spent most of the time picking dandelions in the outfield. She'd text Ethan articles she thought he'd find interesting, recipes she wanted to try, stupid memes that made him laugh during meetings he wasn't supposed to be on his phone for. And somewhere in all of that, Ethan started to realize he was in trouble. It hit him one night in early June. They were at his apartment. Victoria had brought takeout, claiming she was tired of eating alone. And Mia had fallen asleep on the couch between them halfway through a movie. Some animated thing about talking animals that Ethan had stopped paying attention to 20 minutes in. Victoria was still watching, or pretending to. Her hand rested on Mia's back, rising and falling with each breath. She looked softer than Ethan had ever seen her. Less like someone who carried the weight of an empire, and more like someone who just wanted to be here. "I should get her to bed," Ethan said quietly. Victoria nodded but didn't move. "She's out cold." "Yeah." They sat there in the dim light of the TV, neither of them speaking. It should have been awkward. It wasn't. "Can I ask you something?" Victoria said after a while. "Sure." "Why'd you invite me to sit that first day at the café?" Ethan thought about it. "Mia invited you." "But you didn't stop her." "No, I didn't." "Why not?" He looked at her, really looked at her. "Because you looked like you needed somewhere to be." Victoria's throat worked. "I did." "Do you still?" She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was barely above a whisper. "No, not anymore." Ethan felt something shift in the air between them, something he'd been trying to ignore for weeks, maybe months. "Victoria, I should go," she said abruptly, standing up. "It's late." "You don't have to." "I do." She grabbed her crutch, her purse, moved toward the door like she couldn't get out fast enough. Ethan followed, confused, trying to figure out what he'd said wrong. You didn't do anything," Victoria said, her back to him. I need to go." "Okay." She paused at the door, hand on the knob. For a second, he thought she might turn around. She didn't. "See you Saturday," she said. And then she was gone. Ethan stood in the hallway, staring at the closed door, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Behind him, Mia stirred on the couch, mumbling something in her sleep. He went to her, scooped her up carefully, carried her to her room. She didn't wake up, just curled into his chest, trusting and small. He tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and sat on the edge of her bed longer than he needed to. Saturday came, and Victoria didn't show up. Ethan told himself it was fine. She was busy. She had a company to run. Just because she'd been there every week for months didn't mean she owed them anything. But Mia noticed. "Where's Miss Victoria?" she asked, scanning the cafe like she might have just missed her. "I don't know, Bug. Maybe she had to work." "On Saturday?" "Sometimes people have to." Mia frowned, stirring her hot chocolate without drinking it. "Do you think she's mad at us?" "No, of course not." "Then where is she?" Ethan didn't have an answer for that. He texted her that afternoon. "Everything okay?" No response. He tried again Sunday. "Mia's asking about you, still nothing." By Monday, he was starting to worry. By Wednesday, he was debating whether to just show up at her office. By Friday, he'd convinced himself he'd done something wrong and had no idea how to fix it. And then, Saturday morning, she was there, sitting at their table, 2 hot chocolates and a black coffee already waiting. She looked tired, more than tired, like she hadn't slept in days. Mia ran to her before Ethan could stop her, throwing her arms around Victoria's shoulders. "You're here!" "I'm here," Victoria said, hugging her back. "I thought you were mad at us." "I'm not mad. I promise." Mia pulled back, studying her face. "Are you sad?" Victoria hesitated. "A little." "Why? Sometimes grown-ups just get sad, Bug. It's not your fault." Mia seemed to accept that. She climbed into her chair, started chattering about her week, and Victoria listened like she always did. But Ethan could see it, the distance, the wall she'd put back up. After Mia excused herself to go look at the pastry case, Ethan leaned forward. "What happened?" "Nothing." "That's not true." Victoria's jaw tightened. "I just needed some space." "From us?" "From everything." "That's not an answer." She looked at him, and for the first time since he'd known her, she looked scared. "I don't know how to do this." "Do what?" "This." She gestured between them. "Whatever this is." Ethan felt his stomach drop. "I didn't think it was anything." "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Pretend you don't know what I'm talking about." He didn't pretend. He couldn't, because she was right. He did know. "I can't lose this," Victoria said quietly. "I can't lose you. Either of you. And if I let myself feel what I'm feeling, I'm scared that's exactly what's going to happen." Ethan didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to tell her she was wrong, that she wouldn't lose them. But the other part, the part that had been hurt before, that had learned not to make promises he couldn't keep, stayed quiet. "I don't know what you want me to say," he said finally. "I don't either." Mia came back with a cookie the size of her face, and the conversation ended. But the weight of it hung between them for the rest of the morning. Over the next few weeks, things went back to normal, or at least they tried to. Victoria showed up on Saturdays. She texted during the week. She came to Mia's end-of-year school ceremony and clapped when Mia got a certificate for most improved in math. But something was different. Ethan could feel it. The ease they'd had before was gone, replaced by something more careful, like they were both trying not to step on a landmine they couldn't see. And then, one Tuesday in late June, Ethan's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Hello?" "Ethan, it's Diane." His blood went cold. Diane. His ex-wife. Mia's mother. The woman who'd walked out on them 3 years ago and hadn't looked back. "What do you want?" "I want to see her." "No." "Ethan, you don't get to do this. You don't get to disappear and then just call one day like nothing happened." "I know. I made mistakes." "Mistakes?" His voice was rising, and he forced himself to lower it. "You left. You didn't call. You didn't write. You didn't send a birthday card. You were gone." "I wasn't ready to be a mother." "And you think you are now?" Silence on the other end. Then quietly, "I want to try." Ethan closed his eyes. "She doesn't even remember you." "Then let me fix that." "It's not about you, Diane. It's about her." "I know. That's why I'm asking." He wanted to hang up, wanted to tell her to go to hell and never call again. But he couldn't, because as much as he hated her for what she'd done, Mia deserved to make her own choice. Eventually. "I need to think about it," he said. "Okay, I'm in Chicago. I can wait." She gave him her number. He wrote it down, hating himself for it. When he hung up, he sat in his car for 20 minutes, hands shaking, trying to figure out what the hell he was supposed to do. He didn't tell Victoria, didn't tell anyone, just carried it around like a stone in his chest. But Victoria noticed. She always noticed. "You okay?" she asked one Saturday, after Mia had gone to the bathroom. "Yeah, fine." "You're a terrible liar." "I'm fine, Victoria." She didn't push, but the look she gave him said she didn't believe him. That night, after Mia was asleep, he sat on his couch and stared at Diane's number in his phone. He could delete it, pretend the call had never happened, keep his life exactly the way it was. But that felt like lying. And he'd promised himself a long time ago that he wouldn't lie to Mia, not about the things that mattered. He called Diane back. "I'll think about it," he said when she answered. "But I'm not promising anything, and if you hurt her, I won't." "You already did." He hung up before she could respond. The next few weeks were a blur. Diane kept calling, Ethan kept not answering, and every time he saw Victoria, he felt the gap between them widen a little more. He didn't mean to pull away, but he did, because he didn't know how to explain what was happening, didn't know how to tell her that his ex-wife was back, and everything he'd built with Mia and with her felt like it was about to collapse. Victoria felt it. He could see it in the way she looked at him, the questions she didn't ask, the space she started to give him that he didn't want. And then one Saturday in July, she didn't show up again. Mia's face fell when she realized, "Where is she? I don't know." "Did you do something?" The question hit him harder than it should have. "What? No." "Then why isn't she here?" "I don't know, Mia." "You should call her." "I will." But he didn't, because he didn't know what to say, didn't know how to explain that he was drowning, and didn't know how to ask for help. That night, after Mia was asleep, his phone buzzed. "Victoria, I think I need to step back for a while." Ethan stared at the message, his heart sinking. "Why?" "Because I can feel you pulling away. And I can't do this if you're not all in." "I am. You're not. And that's okay. But I can't keep showing up and pretending I don't see it." He wanted to argue, wanted to tell her she was wrong, but she wasn't. "I'm sorry," he typed. "Me too." And that was it. No follow-up. No explanation. Just silence. Ethan sat in the dark, phone in his hand, and felt everything he'd been trying to hold together start to crack. The next Saturday, he and Mia went to the cafe alone. Mia didn't ask where Victoria was. She just sat quietly, drinking her hot chocolate, staring out the window. "Dad?" she said after a while. "Yeah, Bug?" "Did Miss Victoria leave because of me?" "What? No, of course not." "Then why?" Ethan didn't have an answer, not one that made sense, not one that didn't make him sound like a coward. "Sometimes people just need space," he said. "That's what she said last time." "I know, but she came back." "Yeah, she did." "Do you think she'll come back again?" Ethan looked at his daughter, at the hope in her eyes, and felt something break inside him. "I don't know," he said honestly. Mia nodded, like she'd expected that answer. Then she went back to her hot chocolate, and Ethan went back to staring out the window, wondering how he'd managed to lose something he'd never even let himself admit he wanted. 2 weeks passed without Victoria. Then 3. Ethan stopped counting after that because it only made the absence feel heavier. Diane kept calling. Every few days, like clockwork, her name would flash on his screen, and he'd let it go to voicemail. He listened to them once, late at night when he couldn't sleep. The messages were all variations of the same thing. She wanted to see Mia. She'd changed. She understood if he needed time, but please, could they just talk? He deleted them all. But the problem with ignoring something was that it didn't actually go away. It just sat there, growing bigger in the silence, until you couldn't see around it anymore. Mia noticed he was distracted. She'd ask him questions twice before he heard them, find him staring out windows without realizing he'd zoned out. One night, she climbed into his lap while he was pretending to watch TV and just looked at him. "What?" he said. "You're sad." "I'm not sad. You look like Miss Victoria did," before she stopped coming. Ethan felt that like a punch. "I'm okay, Bug. I promise." "You don't have to lie. I'm not a baby." "I know you're not." She rested her head against his chest. "I miss her." "Yeah, me too." "Then why don't you call her?" "It's complicated. Grown-ups always say that when they don't want to fix things." Ethan didn't have an argument for that, because she was right. That Saturday, they went to the cafe again. Their table was open. Mia sat in her usual spot, ordered her usual drink, but the whole thing felt wrong, like walking through a routine that didn't mean anything anymore. Halfway through his coffee, Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, expecting work. It was Diane. "I'm in town for another week, please. Just coffee. That's all I'm asking." He stared at the message, jaw tight. Mia was coloring on a napkin across from him, humming under her breath, completely oblivious. He could keep ignoring this, keep pretending it wasn't happening, or he could deal with it. He texted back, "Fine. Tomorrow. 2 p.m. but just us. Mia doesn't know you're here. Thank you. He shoved his phone in his pocket and tried to focus on his daughter, but his mind was already somewhere else, playing out a conversation he didn't want to have with a person he'd spent 3 years trying to forget. The next day, Ethan met Diane at a coffee shop across town, somewhere Mia would never accidentally see them, somewhere far enough from his life that it felt like neutral ground. She was already there when he walked in, sitting at a corner table, hands wrapped around a mug, looking older than he remembered. Not in a bad way, just different. Her hair was shorter. She wore glasses now. She looked like someone who'd lived through something hard and come out the other side changed. "Hi," she said when he sat down. "Hi." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Ethan didn't order anything, just sat there, arms crossed, waiting. "You look good," Diane said finally. "Don't. I'm just saying, so don't make small talk. You wanted to meet, so talk." She nodded, looking down at her coffee. "I know I don't deserve this. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I need you to hear me out." "I'm listening. I wasn't ready when we had Mia. I thought I was. I thought I could do it. But the second she was born, I felt like I was drowning. And instead of asking for help, I just ran." Ethan's hands curled into fists under the table. "You didn't run, Diane. You left. There's a difference. I know." "Do you? Because running implies you were planning to come back. I'm here now. 3 years later. I know. She doesn't remember you at all. Do you understand that? You're a stranger to her." Diane's eyes filled with tears, but Ethan didn't feel bad. He couldn't. "I was sick," she said quietly. "After I left. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to tell anyone. But I couldn't function. I couldn't get out of bed most days. It took me 2 years just to feel like a person again. You could have called. And said what? That I abandoned my family because I couldn't handle being a mom? That I was so broken I couldn't even take care of myself? Yes. You should have said exactly that." Diane wiped her eyes. "I was ashamed." "You should have been." The words came out harsher than he meant, but he didn't take them back. Because they were true. And he was tired of pretending they weren't. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," Diane said. "I'm asking for a chance to be part of her life. Even if it's small. Even if it's just, you think you can just walk back in after everything? I don't know, but I want to try." Ethan leaned back in his chair, staring at her. He wanted to say no, wanted to tell her to leave and never come back. But there was a part of him, small, buried, but still there, that remembered why he'd loved her once, that remembered the person she'd been before everything fell apart. "I need to think about it," he said. "Okay. And if I say yes, it's not for you. It's for Mia. She deserves to make her own choice about whether she wants you in her life. But she can't make that choice until she's older, until she understands. I know. So if this happens, it happens slow. And the second I think you're going to hurt her, you're gone, permanently." Diane nodded. "I understand." Ethan stood up. "I'll call you." He walked out before she could say anything else, got in his car, gripped the steering wheel, and just sat there for 10 minutes, trying to breathe. When he got home, Mia was at the neighbor's. He'd asked Mrs. Chen to watch her for the afternoon, told her he had an errand to run. Mrs. Chen hadn't asked questions. She never did. He picked Mia up, thanked Mrs. Chen, and spent the rest of the day trying to act normal. But his mind wouldn't stop spinning, because now he had to decide, and either choice felt like the wrong one. That night, after Mia went to bed, he did something he'd been avoiding for weeks. He called Victoria. It rang 4 times. He was about to hang up when she answered. "Hello?" Her voice sounded cautious, like she'd thought about not picking up. "Hey," Ethan said. "It's me." "I know." Silence stretched between them. Ethan didn't know where to start. "I'm sorry," he said finally, "for pulling away, for making you feel like I wasn't all in." "Ethan, let me finish, please." She didn't say anything. He took that as permission to keep going. "My ex-wife is back, Diane, Mia's mom. She called a few weeks ago saying she wants to be part of Mia's life, and I didn't know how to deal with it. So I just shut down. And I pushed you away because I didn't know how to let you in while I was trying to figure this out." Victoria was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was softer. Why didn't you just tell me? Because I didn't want you to think I was choosing her over you. I wouldn't have thought that. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Ethan closed his eyes. I don't know what I'm doing, Victoria, with any of this. I don't know if I should let Diane back into Mia's life. I don't know how to protect her from getting hurt. And I don't know how to ask you to stick around when I can't even promise I won't mess this up. You think I have it figured out? Victoria said, and he could hear something raw in her voice. I'm terrified, Ethan, every single day, because I care about you and I care about Mia, and I don't know how to do this without losing myself in it. Then why'd you step back? Because I thought you didn't want me there. I do. Then prove it. The line went quiet. Ethan didn't know what to say. Didn't know what proving it looked like. I need time, he said, to deal with this Diane thing, to figure out what's right for Mia, but I don't want to lose you while I do it. Victoria exhaled slowly. Okay. Okay? I'll give you time. But Ethan, don't shut me out again. If you need space, tell me. If you're struggling, tell me. Don't just disappear. I won't. Promise? Promise. They talked for another hour. Not about anything heavy, just small things. Work, the weather, a show she'd started watching that she thought he'd hate. It felt normal, easy, like maybe they could find their way back. When they hung up, Ethan felt lighter than he had in weeks, but he still didn't know what to do about Diane. He spent the next few days thinking. Ran through every scenario in his head, letting Diane see Mia, not letting her. What it would mean for his daughter either way. What it would mean for him. Finally, he made a decision. He called Diane, told her she could see Mia, but only supervised visits, only in public places, and only after he talked to Mia first. Thank you, Diane said, her voice thick with emotion. Don't thank me yet. This isn't about you. I know. He hung up and immediately felt like he was going to be sick, because now he had to tell Mia, and he had no idea how. That night, after dinner, he sat her down on the couch. She looked at him with those wide, trusting eyes, and he almost couldn't do it. Bug, I need to talk to you about something. Okay. You know how you have a mom, even though she's not around? Mia's face scrunched up. I guess. I don't really remember her. I know, but she called me a few weeks ago, and she wants to meet you. Mia stared at him. Why? Because she's your mom, and she made some mistakes, but she wants to try to fix them. Do I have to? The question caught him off guard. No, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Then I don't want to. Mia, I don't know her, Dad. Why would I want to meet her? Ethan didn't have a good answer for that, because she was right. Diane was a stranger, and forcing Mia to meet a stranger just because they shared DNA felt wrong. How about this, he said. You don't have to decide right now, but if you ever change your mind, you can tell me, okay? Mia thought about it, then nodded. Okay. And if you want to talk about it, about her or why she left or anything, you can always ask me. I know. She curled up against him and Ethan wrapped his arms around her, feeling like maybe he'd done the right thing. Maybe. He called Diane the next day and told her Mia wasn't ready. Diane took it better than he expected. Said she'd wait. Said she understood. Ethan didn't know if he believed her, but it was out of his hands now. A few days later, Victoria texted, Can I come over? Yeah, of course. She showed up that evening with takeout and a 6-pack of beer. Mia practically tackled her at the door. You're back, Victoria laughed, hugging her tight. I'm back. Are you staying this time? If your dad will let me. Ethan met her eyes over Mia's head. Yeah, she can stay. They ate dinner on the living room floor, Mia chattering nonstop about everything Victoria had missed. At one point, Mia asked if Victoria wanted to see her new dance routine, and before Victoria could answer, Mia was already spinning around the room, completely offbeat, but fully committed. Victoria watched her with this look on her face that Ethan couldn't quite name. Soft, sad, happy, all at once. After Mia finally wore herself out and went to bed, Victoria and Ethan sat on the couch with their beers. The TV was on, but neither of them were watching. So, Victoria said, Your ex. Yeah. How'd that go? Ethan told her everything: the meeting, the conversation with Mia, the decision to let Mia choose when she was ready. Victoria listened without interrupting. When he finished, she just nodded. "You did the right thing," she said. "You think?" "Yeah, you put Mia first. That's all you can do." Ethan took a long drink. "I don't know if it's going to be enough." "It will be." "You don't know that." "Neither do you, but you're trying. That counts for something." They sat in silence for a while. Then Victoria spoke again, quieter this time. "I need to tell you something." Ethan looked at her. "Okay. I meant what I said on the phone about being terrified. I've spent the last 4 years building this life where I don't need anyone, where I'm in control, and then I met you and Mia, and suddenly I want things I didn't think I was allowed to want anymore." "Like what?" "Like this. Sitting on a couch with someone and not feeling like I have to perform, like being part of something that isn't work, like family." Ethan's throat tightened. "Victoria, let me finish." I pulled away because I was scared. Because every time I let myself care about someone, I lose them. And I can't go through that again. I won't survive it. "You won't lose us?" "You can't promise that." "No, I can't. But I can promise I'm not going anywhere unless you tell me to." Victoria looked at him, and he saw it again. That fear. But underneath it, something else. Hope. "I don't want you to go anywhere," she said. "Then I won't." She leaned against him, and he put his arm around her, and they stayed like that until the beer was gone and the TV had cycled through 3 episodes of something neither of them cared about. When Victoria left that night, Ethan walked her to the door. She paused on the threshold, turned back. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not giving up on me." "I could say the same thing." She smiled, small but real, and then she was gone. Over the next few weeks, things started to settle. Victoria came over more. Not just on Saturdays, weeknights too. She'd bring dinner, help Mia with homework, stay late, just talking. It started to feel less like visits and more like she belonged there. Diane kept her distance, checking in every so often but not pushing. Ethan appreciated that more than he'd expected. It meant she was serious, or at least trying to be. And then, in late August, everything shifted. Ethan's business hit a rough patch. A major client pulled out, taking a huge chunk of revenue with them. He spent a week scrambling, trying to plug the hole, working 18-hour days and barely sleeping. Victoria noticed. Of course she did. "You look like hell," she said one night when she came over. "Thanks." "I'm serious, Ethan. When's the last time you slept?" "I don't know. Tuesday?" "It's Friday." "Is it?" She sat down next to him, took the laptop out of his hands. "Talk to me." So he did. Told her about the client, the money, the fear that he was one bad quarter away from losing everything. Victoria listened, and then she said, "Let me help." "What?" "Let me invest. In your company." Ethan stared at her. "Victoria, no." "Why not?" "Because I don't want your money. It's not charity, it's an investment. I've seen your numbers. You're solid. You just need a cushion." "I can't." "Why?" "Because what if I fail? What if I lose your money and ruin everything between us?" Victoria's expression softened. "You won't. You don't know that." "You're right. I don't. But I trust you. And I want to do this. Not because I think you need saving, but because I believe in what you're building." Ethan didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to say yes, wanted to take the help and stop drowning. But the other part, the part that had been doing this alone for so long, didn't know how to let someone carry the weight with him. "I need to think about it," he said. "Okay." But she didn't push, just sat with him while he worked, keeping him company in the silence. A few days later, Ethan made his decision. He called Victoria. "I'll take the investment, but we do this right. Contract, terms, everything." "Of course." "And if it goes south, we don't let it mess us up." "It won't." "Victoria." "It won't, Ethan. I promise." They met with lawyers, drew up paperwork, made it official. And just like that, Victoria became a partner in his business. It should have felt weird, but it didn't. It felt right. The money helped. Within a month, Ethan had stabilized things, brought on 2 new clients, started sleeping more than 4 hours a night. He couldn't believe the difference it made. Not just the financial cushion, but knowing someone believed in him enough to bet on him. One Saturday in September, they were back at the cafe. Same table, same drinks. Mia was drawing, Victoria was checking emails, and Ethan was just sitting there, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Content. "Dad?" Mia said, not looking up from her drawing. "Yeah, Bug? Is Miss Victoria going to stay forever?" Ethan glanced at Victoria. She was watching him, waiting. "I don't know," he said honestly. "Why?" "Because I want her to." Victoria's eyes shimmered. She reached across the table, squeezed Mia's hand. "I want that too." Mia grinned and went back to her drawing, and Ethan felt something in his chest crack open. Not breaking, expanding. That night, after Mia was asleep, Victoria stayed late. They were on the couch again, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her. "She meant it," Ethan said quietly. "About wanting you to stay." "I know." "Do you? Want to stay, I mean." Victoria lifted her head, looked at him. "Yeah, I do." "Even with all the mess? Diane, my business, everything?" "Especially with all the mess." Ethan didn't kiss her, not yet, but he wanted to, and he could tell she wanted him to. Instead, he just held her, and that felt like enough. But the universe, as it turned out, wasn't done with them yet. The next week, Diane called. Her voice was tight, urgent. "I need to see Mia." "We talked about this. She's not ready." "I know, but I'm leaving Chicago. My job is relocating me, and I don't know when I'll be back." Ethan's stomach dropped. "When?" "End of the month." "That's 2 weeks." "I know. Please, Ethan, just once. Let me see her. Even if she doesn't know who I am, I just need to see her." He wanted to say no, wanted to protect Mia from this. But there was something in Diane's voice that got to him. Desperation, grief, the sound of someone who knew they were running out of chances. "I'll ask her," he said, "but if she says no, that's the end of it." "Okay, thank you." He hung up and immediately regretted it, because now he had to ask Mia, again. That night, he sat her down, explained that her mom was leaving town, that she wanted to meet her before she left. Mia looked at him with those serious eyes. "Do you think I should?" "I think that's up to you, Bug. There's no wrong answer." She thought about it for a long time. Then, finally, "Okay, I'll meet her, but only if you're there." "I'll be there." "And Miss Victoria, too." Ethan blinked. "You want Victoria there?" "Yeah, she makes me brave." Ethan felt his throat close up. "Okay, I'll ask her." When he called Victoria and explained, she didn't hesitate. "Of course I'll be there." "You don't have to." "Ethan, I'm there." The meeting was set for the following Saturday. Neutral ground, the park near Mia's school. Ethan barely slept the night before, kept running through every possible way it could go wrong. But when the day came, he got up, got Mia dressed, and tried to act like everything was fine. Victoria met them at the park. She took one look at Ethan's face and squeezed his hand. "It's going to be okay," she said. "You don't know that." "No, but we'll handle it either way." Diane was already there, sitting on a bench, hands clasped in her lap, looking like she might throw up. When she saw them approaching, she stood, her eyes locked on Mia, and Ethan saw her face crumble. "Hi," Diane said, her voice shaking. Mia held Ethan's hand tighter. You're so big." Mia didn't say anything, just stared. Diane looked at Ethan, then at Victoria, clearly trying to figure out who she was. Ethan didn't explain. "Can I sit?" Diane asked Mia. Mia looked up at Ethan. He nodded. "Okay," Mia said. They sat on the bench. Diane kept a respectful distance. Ethan and Victoria stood a few feet away, close enough to intervene, but far enough to give them space. "I brought you something," Diane said, pulling a small box from her bag. "It's a bracelet. I don't know if you like bracelets, but—" "I do," Mia said quietly. Diane smiled, tears streaming down her face. "Can I put it on you?" Mia held out her wrist. Diane fastened the bracelet with shaking hands. "Thank you for meeting me," Diane said. "I know this is weird, and I know you don't know me, but I want you to know that I think about you every day, and I'm so proud of you." "You don't know me," Mia said. "Not mean, just factual." "You're right, I don't. But I'd like to, someday." if you ever want that. Mia didn't answer, just looked at the bracelet on her wrist. After a few more minutes, Diane stood. I should go. She looked at Ethan. Thank you. He nodded, didn't trust himself to speak. Diane walked away and Mia watched her go. Then she turned to Ethan. Can we go home now? Yeah, Bug, we can go home. Victoria drove them back. Mia was quiet the whole way, staring out the window. When they got to the apartment, she went straight to her room. Ethan started to follow, but Victoria caught his arm. Give her a minute. She's upset. She's processing. They waited. 10 minutes later, Mia came out, climbed into Ethan's lap, and just cried. He held her, rocking her gently, while Victoria sat next to them, one hand on Mia's back. I don't know if I want her in my life, Mia said through her tears. That's okay. But I feel bad. You don't have to feel bad, Bug. You get to feel however you feel. She cried for a while longer. Then finally, she pulled back. Can Miss Victoria stay tonight? If she wants to. Victoria nodded. I'll stay. That night, after Mia finally fell asleep, Ethan and Victoria sat in the dim light of the living room, exhausted. That was brutal, Ethan said. Yeah. Thank you for being there. Where else would I be? He looked at her and something clicked into place, something he'd been too afraid to name. I love you, he said. Victoria went still. What? I love you. I don't know when it happened, but it did, and I need you to know. She didn't say anything for a long moment, then quietly, I love you too. Ethan kissed her, soft, careful, like something that mattered. When they pulled apart, she was crying. What's wrong? Nothing. I just didn't think I'd get to have this again. You do. We both do. She kissed him again, and this time it felt like a promise. The first few weeks after that night felt like walking on new ground. Not unstable exactly, but unfamiliar. Ethan kept waiting for something to go wrong, for the other shoe to drop, because good things didn't just happen to him without consequences. But nothing broke. Victoria kept showing up. Mia kept smiling. And slowly, carefully, Ethan started to believe that maybe this was real. They didn't announce anything. Didn't sit Mia down and explain that things had changed between him and Victoria. Kids knew things without needing words, and Mia had figured it out long before either of them said anything. She started calling Victoria's apartment the other house and asking if they could all have dinner together every night instead of just some nights. We still have our own places, Bug, Ethan reminded her one morning while making breakfast. I know, but it would be easier if Miss Victoria just lived here. Easier how? Then I wouldn't have to miss her when she's not around. Ethan didn't know what to say to that, because he felt the same way. Victoria had started keeping a toothbrush at his place, then a drawer, then half the closet. It happened gradually, the kind of creep that felt natural until one day Ethan realized her stuff was everywhere, and he didn't mind at all. One evening in early October, Victoria was cooking dinner, while Ethan helped Mia with her math homework at the kitchen table. It was such a normal scene, so domestic it almost hurt, and Ethan found himself just watching them. The way Victoria moved around his kitchen like she'd been doing it for years. The way Mia asked her questions without looking up, completely comfortable. Dad, you're not helping, Mia said, snapping him out of it. Sorry, what's the problem? This one. She pointed at a word problem about trains leaving stations at different times. Ethan looked at it, his brain already tired from a long day. It's about distance and speed, Victoria said from the stove, not turning around. If train A leaves at 2:30 going 60 miles per hour, and train B leaves at 3 going 70, Mia continued, scribbling numbers. Then train B catches up after. Got it. Show off, Ethan muttered. Victoria laughed. I'm not the one who asked for help with second grade math. It's third grade, actually. Even worse. Mia giggled, and the sound filled the apartment with something Ethan couldn't name, something that felt dangerously close to complete. After dinner, after Mia had gone to bed, Victoria curled up next to him on the couch. She'd been quieter than usual all evening, and Ethan could tell something was on her mind. You okay? He asked. Yeah, just thinking. About? She hesitated. My company's expanding. We're opening a new office in San Francisco. Ethan's stomach dropped. When? Early next year. They want me to oversee the launch. For how long? 6 months, maybe more. The words hung between them. 6 months. Half a year. Ethan tried to keep his face neutral, tried not to let the panic show, but Victoria saw it anyway. She always did. I haven't said yes yet, she added quickly, but you want to. I don't know, it's a big opportunity, but it's also far. Yeah. Ethan pulled her closer. You should do it. Ethan, I'm serious. If it's good for your career, you should do it. What about us? We'll figure it out. Victoria pulled back to look at him. You say that like it's easy. It's not. But I'm not going to be the reason you don't do something important. You're important too. I know, but this is your life, Victoria. Your career. I'm not going to ask you to choose. She searched his face, and he could see her working through it. The logistics, the distance, the fear that 6 months would turn into forever. I don't want to lose this, she said quietly. You won't. You can't know that. No, but I can choose to believe it. She kissed him then, hard and desperate, like she was trying to prove something to both of them. When they broke apart, her eyes were wet. I need to think about it, she said. Okay. But Ethan could already see the answer in her face. She was going to say yes, and he was going to have to let her go. The next few weeks were strange. Victoria didn't bring it up again, and Ethan didn't ask. They just kept going through their routine. Saturdays at the café, weeknight dinners, bedtime stories for Mia, like nothing was about to change. But it was. Ethan could feel it in the way Victoria held on a little tighter when they hugged, in the way she looked at him sometimes, like she was memorizing his face, in the way she stayed later and later, like she was afraid of what happened when she left. And then, one night in late October, she told him. I said yes. They were in his kitchen. Mia was asleep. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. Ethan nodded. When do you leave? January 15th. 3 months. That was all they had. Okay, Ethan said. Okay? Yeah, we'll make it work. Victoria's face crumpled. I don't know how. Neither do I. But we will. She moved into his arms, and he held her while she cried. Not loud, just small broken sounds that she tried to muffle against his chest. I don't want to go, she whispered. Then don't. I have to. I know. They stood there for a long time, holding each other in the dim light, and Ethan felt something shift, not breaking, just bending under the weight of what was coming. The next morning, Mia asked why Victoria's eyes were red. Allergies, Victoria said. In October? Weird, right? Mia didn't look convinced, but she let it go, at least until later that day when she cornered Ethan in the living room. Is Miss Victoria leaving? Ethan's chest tightened. What makes you think that? She's sad. And you're sad. And people are only that sad when someone's leaving. He should have known better than to try to hide things from her. She has to go to California for work. For a little while. How long? 6 months? Mia's face fell. That's forever. It's not forever, Bug. It feels like it. Ethan pulled her onto his lap. I know, but she'll come back. How do you know? Because she promised. Mia was quiet for a moment, then, do you love her? The question caught him off guard. Yeah, I do. Does she love you? She does. Then why is she leaving? Ethan didn't have a good answer for that, because the truth was complicated. Because love didn't always mean staying, because sometimes people had to choose themselves, and that was okay even when it hurt. Sometimes grown-ups have to do things for their jobs, he said finally, even when they don't want to. That's stupid. Yeah, sometimes it is. Mia rested her head against his shoulder. I'm gonna miss her. Me too, Bug. That night, Victoria came over. She'd brought ice cream and a stack of movies, clearly trying to make things feel normal. But Mia wasn't having it. Dad told me you're leaving, she said the second Victoria walked in. Victoria glanced at Ethan, then crouched down to Mia's level. I am, but just for a little while. 6 months isn't a little while. You're right, it's not. But I promise I'll visit, and we can video chat every day if you want. It's not the same. I know. Mia crossed her arms. I don't want you to go. I don't want to go either. Then don't. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. I have to, sweetheart. But that doesn't mean I'm leaving you, or your dad. I'm just going to be far away for a bit. You promise you'll come back? I promise. Mia stared at her for a long moment. Then finally she threw her arms around Victoria's neck. Victoria held her tight, and Ethan had to look away before he lost it completely. The weeks leading up to January were a blur. Thanksgiving came and went. They spent it together, the three of them, eating too much food and watching the parade on TV. Christmas was harder. Victoria bought Mia too many presents, like she was trying to make up for the months she'd be gone. Mia didn't complain. On New Year's Eve, they stayed in, put Mia to bed early, sat on the couch with cheap champagne and watched the ball drop on TV. 2 weeks, Victoria said quietly. Yeah. I keep thinking I should cancel. Tell them I can't do it. But you're not going to. No. Ethan took her hand. It's the right call for your career. But what about for us? We'll survive. You sound so sure. I have to be, otherwise I'll fall apart. She leaned against him and they sat there in silence until the countdown started. When the clock struck midnight, he kissed her and it tasted like goodbye even though she wasn't leaving yet. The next 2 weeks went too fast. Victoria packed up her apartment, arranged for movers, tied up loose ends at work. Ethan helped when he could, but mostly he just tried to memorize the way she looked in his space, the way she laughed at Mia's jokes, the way she fit into their life like she'd always been there. The night before she left, she stayed over. Mia insisted on sleeping between them, and neither of them argued. They lay there in the dark, Mia snoring softly, and Ethan stared at the ceiling, trying not to think about how empty the bed was going to feel tomorrow. I love you, Victoria whispered. I love you too. This is going to be hard. I know. But we'll make it work. We will. He wanted to believe it. He really did. The next morning, Ethan drove her to the airport. Mia came too, even though she'd cried the whole way there. They stood outside the terminal, suitcases at Victoria's feet, and nobody said anything for a long moment. Call me when you land, Ethan said finally. I will. And if you need anything, I know. Victoria crouched down, pulled Mia into a hug. You be good for your dad, okay? Mia nodded, tears streaming down her face. And remember, I'm just a phone call away. Anytime you want to talk. Okay. Victoria kissed the top of her head, then stood, looked at Ethan. I'll see you soon, she said. Yeah. He kissed her, tried to pour everything he couldn't say into it. When they pulled apart, she was crying. I have to go, she said. I know. She grabbed her suitcase, walked toward the doors, then stopped, turned back. Ethan? Yeah? Don't give up on me. Never. She nodded, wiped her eyes, and disappeared into the airport. Ethan stood there for a long time, Mia's hand in his, watching the doors like Victoria might come back through them. She didn't. On the drive home, Mia was silent. When they got back to the apartment, she went straight to her room and didn't come out for hours. Ethan tried to work, tried to distract himself, but everything felt wrong. The apartment was too quiet. The coffee tasted bad. He kept reaching for his phone to text Victoria, then remembering she was on a plane. When she finally called that night, he answered on the first ring. Hey. Hey, I made it. Good. The apartment's smaller than I thought, and the movers lost one of my boxes. That sucks. Yeah. Silence stretched between them. Ethan didn't know what to say, didn't know how to make this feel normal when it was anything but. I miss you already, Victoria said. I miss you too. How's Mia? Sad. She's been in her room all day. Can I talk to her? Ethan went to Mia's door, knocked softly. Bug? Victoria's on the phone. Mia opened the door, eyes red and puffy. Ethan handed her the phone. Hi, Mia said, her voice small. Ethan couldn't hear what Victoria said, but Mia's face softened a little. She nodded, said okay a few times, then handed the phone back. She wants to talk to you again. Ethan took the phone. Hey, I told her we'd video chat tomorrow after school. Okay? And Ethan, this is going to be okay. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but it will be. Yeah. He wanted to believe her, but all he could feel was the empty space where she used to be. The first month was the hardest. Victoria called every day, but it wasn't the same. The time difference made things awkward. She was starting her day when they were ending theirs. By the time she had free time, Mia was already asleep. Ethan started staying up later just to talk to her. They'd video chat for hours, talking about nothing and everything. She'd tell him about the new office, the team she was building, the coffee shop she'd found that almost reminded her of their cafe in Chicago. He'd tell her about Mia's school project, the contract he'd landed, the way the apartment felt too big now. But there were gaps. Things they couldn't say over a screen, touches they couldn't share. And slowly, without meaning to, they started to drift. It wasn't anyone's fault. It was just distance, time. The way life kept moving even when you wanted it to stop. By February, the calls were getting shorter. Victoria was working late most nights. Ethan was exhausted from juggling work and single parenting again. They still said I love you at the end of every call, but it was starting to feel automatic, like something they said because they were supposed to, not because they meant it. And then Diane called again. I'm back in Chicago. Ethan's blood went cold. What? The job didn't work out. I'm moving back. When? I'm already here. I got in last week. And you're just now telling me? I wanted to get settled first, but Ethan, I want to see Mia. I know she wasn't ready before, but maybe now, no. Please, just think about it. I said no, Diane. I'm not going away, Ethan. I'm her mother. Being her mother means more than biology. I know that. That's why I'm trying. He hung up before she could say anything else. But the damage was done, because now Diane was back, and she wasn't leaving. He didn't tell Victoria, didn't want to add more stress when she was already drowning in work. But keeping it from her felt like lying, and the guilt ate at him. A week later, Diane showed up at Mia's school. Ethan got the call from the principal while he was in a meeting. He left immediately, drove faster than he should have, and found Diane sitting in the office with a teacher he didn't recognize. What the hell are you doing here? Ethan demanded. I just wanted to see her, Diane said. I wasn't going to take her or anything. You can't do this. You can't just show up at her school. I have rights. You gave up your rights when you left. The principal cleared her throat. Mr. Cole, perhaps we should discuss this somewhere more private. Ethan forced himself to calm down. They moved to the principal's office, and he spent the next hour explaining the situation, making sure the school knew Diane wasn't allowed to pick Mia up or contact her without his permission. When he finally left, he was shaking. He called his lawyer, started looking into restraining orders, did everything he could to protect his daughter. But the damage was done. Because Mia had seen Diane in the hallway, and now she had questions. Why was my mom at school? Ethan didn't know how to answer that. She wanted to see you. I thought you said she was gone. She was, but she's back now. Does that mean she wants to be my mom again? I don't know what she wants, Bug. Mia was quiet for a long time, then. I don't think I want her to be. That's okay. Is it? Yeah. You get to decide who's in your life. Even if she's my mom? Even then, Mia seemed to accept that. But Ethan could tell she was still working through it. That night, he finally told Victoria. She was furious. She did what? Showed up at the school. I've already talked to my lawyer. Ethan, this is serious. She can't just... I know. You should have told me sooner. I didn't want to stress you out. I'm already stressed, but I'd rather know what's going on than be left in the dark. I'm sorry. Victoria sighed. I know you are. I hate being this far away. I hate that I can't help. You are helping. Just talking to you helps. It doesn't feel like enough. It is. But even as he said it, Ethan could hear the doubt in his own voice. The next few weeks were a mess. Diane kept calling, kept trying to arrange meetings. Ethan's lawyer sent a cease and desist letter, but it didn't stop her. She was relentless, and Ethan was exhausted. Victoria tried to be supportive, but the distance made it hard. She'd offer advice, but she wasn't there. Couldn't be there. And Ethan found himself resenting that more than he wanted to admit. One night in late February, they had their first real fight. You're not listening to me, Victoria said, her voice tight. I am listening, I just don't agree. Because you're not thinking clearly. You're too close to this. And you're too far away to understand it. The words came out harsher than he meant, but he didn't take them back. Victoria's face went cold. That's not fair. Isn't it? You're in California living your life while I'm here dealing with my ex-wife showing up at my daughter's school. You get to check in and check out whenever you want. That's not what I'm doing, isn't it? I'm trying to be there for you, Ethan, but you keep shutting me out because you're not actually here. The silence that followed was deafening. I can't do this right now, Victoria said finally. I have to go. Victoria? But she'd already hung up. Ethan stared at his phone, heart pounding, and realized what he'd just done. He'd pushed her away. Again. He tried calling back. She didn't answer. He texted. No response. By the next morning, he was panicking. He called her office, but they said she was in meetings all day. He left voicemails, sent emails, nothing. 3 days passed without a word. On the 4th day, she finally texted, I need some space. Ethan felt his world tilt. How much space? I don't know. I just need to think. About us? About everything. He wanted to fight it, wanted to call her and beg her not to do this. But he didn't. Because maybe she was right. Maybe they did need space. Maybe this wasn't working. A week went by, then 2. Victoria stopped calling, stopped texting, and Ethan felt himself falling apart. Mia noticed. Of course she did. Is Miss Victoria coming back? I don't know, Bug. Did you guys have a fight? Yeah, we did. Are you going to fix it? Ethan looked at his daughter, at the hope in her eyes, and felt something crack inside him. I'm going to try. But he didn't know how. Didn't know how to fix something that felt this broken. And then, in early March, Victoria called. Hey. Her voice was quiet, careful. Hey, Ethan said. I'm sorry I went dark on you. I'm sorry I pushed you away. I know you're dealing with a lot, and I wasn't being fair. Neither was I. Silence stretched between them. I miss you, Victoria said finally. I miss you too. But I don't know if missing each other is enough. Ethan's stomach dropped. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't know how to do this. The distance, the fighting, all of it. I don't know if I'm strong enough. Victoria, I love you, Ethan. I do. But I'm scared that if we keep going like this, we're going to destroy what we have. So what do we do? I don't know. Ethan closed his eyes, feeling everything he'd built start to crumble. Do you want to break up? No, but I don't know how to make this work either. Then we figure it out, together. How? I don't know, but we try. Because the alternative is losing each other, and I'm not ready for that. Victoria was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with tears. I'm not ready either. Then we don't give up. Not yet. Okay. Okay. They talked for hours that night, laid everything out, the fear, the frustration, the love that was still there, buried under all the mess. And slowly, carefully, they started to rebuild. But Ethan knew it wasn't over, because Diane was still calling. Victoria was still 3 time zones away. And he was still terrified that one wrong move would break everything for good. The rebuild was slower than either of them wanted. They started with small things, morning texts, quick calls during lunch breaks, video chats where they didn't talk about the hard stuff, just existed together across the distance. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. March turned into April, and Ethan found himself falling into a rhythm again. Work was stable, Mia was doing better, and Diane, after the cease and desist letter and a strongly worded conversation with Ethan's lawyer, had finally backed off. She still called occasionally, but she wasn't showing up unannounced anymore. It was progress, even if it didn't feel like enough. Victoria's project in San Francisco was going well. Too well, actually. Her company wanted to extend her stay another 3 months, and when she told Ethan, he could hear the conflict in her voice. You should do it, he said, even though the words hurt coming out. I don't want to be away that long. But it's good for your career. I don't care about my career if it means losing you. Ethan gripped the phone tighter. You're not going to lose me. We've made it this far. Barely. Barely still counts. She laughed, but it sounded tired. I hate that you're right. I'm not always right, just this once. I'll think about it. She did think about it. For 2 weeks. And then she said yes to the extension, and Ethan tried not to feel like the finish line kept moving further away. But something shifted after that conversation. Victoria started talking about the future in a way she hadn't before, Not just vague hopes, but actual plans. Where she wanted to be in 5 years, what she wanted to build. And for the first time, Ethan realized she was including him and Mia in those plans without even realizing it. "I've been looking at properties in Lincoln Park," she said one night during their call. "For what?" "I don't know, just looking. The real estate market's insane right now." "You thinking about moving when you get back?" "Maybe. That high-rise downtown never felt like home anyway." Ethan wanted to ask if she'd consider something closer to him, but he didn't want to push, so he just said, "Let me know if you want help looking." "Yeah, I will." In early May, Mia's birthday was coming up. She was turning 7, and all she wanted was a party at the park with her friends, and for Victoria to be there. "I don't know if she can make it, Bug," Ethan said gently. "She's pretty far away." "But you'll ask her, right?" "Yeah, I'll ask." When he brought it up with Victoria that night, she went quiet. "When is it?" "May 15th. That's in 2 weeks. I know, I'm not expecting you to fly back for it. I just promised Mia I'd ask." "I want to be there." "Victoria, you don't have to." "I want to. Let me see if I can make it work." 3 days later, she called him back. "I booked a flight. I'll be there the 14th. Ethan felt something loosen in his chest. "Are you serious?" "Yeah, I'm not missing this." "Thank you." "You don't have to thank me. She's important to me." "So are you." Victoria's voice softened. "I know. That's why I'm coming." The 2 weeks leading up to her visit felt endless. Ethan tried not to get his hopes up, tried not to imagine what it would be like to see her again in person. But he couldn't help it. He missed her. Not just the idea of her, but her. The way she laughed at bad jokes, the way she looked at Mia like she hung the moon, the way she fit into his life like she'd always belonged there. When the day finally came, Ethan picked her up from the airport. Mia was at school, so it was just the two of them. He saw her before she saw him, standing near baggage claim, looking tired and beautiful and so familiar it hurt. She spotted him, and her whole face changed. She moved toward him, and he met her halfway, pulling her into his arms without thinking. She smelled like coffee and airplane and something distinctly her, and Ethan realized how much he'd missed even the small things. "Hi," she said against his shoulder. "Hi." They stood there for a long moment, just holding each other, and Ethan felt something settle in his chest that had been unsettled for months. When they pulled apart, Victoria's eyes were wet. "I can't believe I'm actually here." "Me neither." "How's Mia? Does she know I'm coming?" "No, I wanted it to be a surprise." Victoria grinned. "She's going to lose it." Going. She did. When Ethan picked Mia up from school with Victoria in the passenger seat, Mia literally screamed. She threw her backpack on the ground and launched herself at Victoria the second she got out of the car. "You're here! You're really here!" Victoria laughed, hugging her tight. "I told you I'd come back. I didn't think you meant this soon." "Well, I couldn't miss your birthday, could I?" Mia pulled back, her face glowing. "This is the best present ever." "The party's tomorrow, Bug. Don't peek too early." But Mia was already talking a mile a minute, telling Victoria about everything she'd missed. School, soccer, the tooth she'd lost last week. Victoria listened like it was the most important conversation she'd ever had. And Ethan just watched them, feeling something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. That night, after Mia finally went to bed, Ethan and Victoria sat on the couch with beers and Chinese takeout. It felt surreal having her back in his apartment, like no time had passed at all. "This is weird," Victoria said, echoing his thoughts. "Good weird or bad weird?" "Good. Definitely good." They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Victoria set down her container and looked at him. "I need to tell you something." Ethan's stomach tightened. "Okay. I'm coming back, for good." He stared at her. "What?" "The project in San Francisco is wrapping up in June. They offered me a permanent position out there, but I turned it down." Victoria, let me finish. "I turned it down because I don't want to build a life somewhere you and Mia aren't. I don't want to keep doing this long-distance thing. I want to come home." Ethan couldn't speak. He just sat there trying to process what she was saying. "I know it's a big decision," Victoria continued, "and I know it might complicate things, but I've spent the last 4 months away from you, and I've never been more sure of anything in my life. This is where I want to be." "Are you sure?" "Positive." Ethan pulled her into his arms, and she came willingly, tucking her head under his chin. I've been waiting to hear you say that for months. I know. I'm sorry it took me so long. Don't be sorry. You're here now. That's all that matters. They stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other, and Ethan felt the last of his fear start to let go. The next day was Mia's party. They spent the morning decorating the park pavilion with balloons and streamers while Mia supervised, making sure everything was perfect. Kids started arriving around noon. Classmates, neighbors, a few of Mia's soccer teammates. The chaos was immediate and overwhelming, but in the best way. Victoria moved through it all with ease, helping with games, serving cake, making sure no one felt left out. At one point, Ethan caught her kneeling next to a shy kid who was sitting alone, talking to him until he smiled and joined the others. She's good with them, Mrs. Chen said, appearing at Ethan's elbow. Yeah, she is. You planning to keep her around? Ethan looked at Victoria, watched her laugh at something Mia said, and felt his chest tighten. If she'll let me. Mrs. Chen patted his arm. I think she will. Later, after the party wound down and the last of the guests had left, Mia collapsed on the grass, exhausted and happy. Best birthday ever, she announced. I'm glad, Bug. Can Miss Victoria stay forever now? Ethan glanced at Victoria. She was watching them, a soft smile on her face. We'll see, he said. But later that night, after Mia was asleep and they were cleaning up the leftover cake, Victoria brought it up. What if I did? Did what? Stay forever. Ethan stopped what he was doing. Are you asking what I think you're asking? I don't know. What do you think I'm asking? Victoria, I'm serious, Ethan. I don't want to live across town anymore. I don't want separate apartments and scheduled visits. I want this every day. The mess, the chaos, all of it. Ethan's heart was pounding. You want to move in? Yeah, if you'll have me. Victoria, I've wanted this since you left. She smiled, and it was the most genuine thing he'd seen in months. So is that a yes? That's a hell yes. She kissed him, and it felt like coming home. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Victoria went back to San Francisco to finish her project and pack up her life. Ethan started clearing space in his apartment, making room for her things, trying to wrap his head around the fact that this was actually happening. Mia was over the moon. She helped pick out which drawer Victoria would get, insisted they move furniture around so there'd be room for Victoria's books, and made a welcome home sign that she hung on the front door. Do you think she'll like it? Mia asked, standing back to admire her work. She's gonna love it, Bug. And she did. When Victoria arrived in late June with all her stuff crammed into a moving truck, the first thing she saw was Mia's sign. She stood there in the doorway, looking at it, and started crying. I made it myself, Mia said proudly. It's perfect, Victoria managed. They spent the next 2 days unpacking, organizing, figuring out how to fit 2 lives into one space. It wasn't seamless. There were arguments about where to put the couch, whose coffee maker to keep, whether they needed that many throw pillows. But they figured it out piece by piece until the apartment felt less like his place and more like theirs. One night, about a week after Victoria moved in, Ethan woke up to find her side of the bed empty. He found her in the living room, standing by the window, looking out at the city. You okay? He asked. She turned, and in the dim light, he could see she'd been crying. Yeah, I keep waiting for something to go wrong. Ethan moved to her side. Nothing's going wrong. I know, that's what scares me. I'm not used to things working out. Me neither. She leaned against him. What if I'm not good at this? At being part of a family? You're already part of this family, Victoria. You have been for a long time. But what if I mess it up? Then we'll figure it out, together. She was quiet for a moment. Then, I lost everyone once. I don't think I could survive losing you and Mia. Ethan turned her to face him. You're not going to lose us. I promise. You can't promise that. No, but I can promise I'm going to try like hell to make sure it doesn't happen. Victoria kissed him, and he could taste the salt of her tears. When they pulled apart, she was smiling. Okay, she said. Okay? Yeah, let's do this. They went back to bed, and for the first time in months, Ethan slept without worrying about what came next. Summer passed in a blur of lazy Saturdays, trips to the beach, late-night talks on the couch. Victoria settled into their routine like she'd always been there. She learned Mia's schedule, figured out which mornings Ethan needed coffee before conversation, started keeping her favorite snacks stocked in the pantry. And slowly, the pieces of their life together started to fit. In August, Diane reached out again. But this time, her tone was different. "I know I messed up," she said over the phone. "And I know Mia doesn't want to see me. But I want you to know I'm getting help. Real help. Therapy, medication, all of it. I'm not asking for anything right now. I just wanted you to know." Ethan didn't know what to say. Part of him was still angry, but another part, the part that remembered who Diane used to be, was glad she was trying. "That's good, Diane. I'm glad you're taking care of yourself. If she ever wants to reach out, I'll be here, but I'm not going to push anymore." "I appreciate that." When he hung up, Victoria was watching him from the kitchen. "You okay?" "Yeah, I think I am." "What did she want?" He told her, and Victoria nodded slowly. "That's progress." "Doesn't change what she did." "No, but it's something." Later that night, Ethan talked to Mia about it. Not pushing, just letting her know the door was open if she ever wanted it. Mia thought about it, then shrugged. "Maybe someday, but not now." "That's okay, Bug. It's your choice." "I know." She went back to her drawing, and Ethan let it go. Because she was right. It was her choice, and she'd make it when she was ready. In September, on a Saturday morning, the three of them went back to the café. Same table, same drinks, same routine they'd started almost 2 years ago. But everything was different now. Mia was bigger, louder, more confident. Victoria didn't look exhausted anymore. She looked settled, like she'd finally found a place where she could breathe. And Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. "Can I ask you something?" Victoria said after Mia had run off to look at the pastry case. "Sure." "Are you happy?" Ethan looked at her, really looked at her, and felt his chest tighten in the best way. "Yeah, I am." "Me too." "Good." Mia came back with a cookie the size of her head, and they sat there together, the three of them, while the cafe buzzed around them. Strangers came and went. The barista called out orders. The espresso machine hissed and sputtered, but at their table, everything was still. After a while, Mia looked up from her cookie. "Dad?" "Yeah, Bug?" "I'm glad Miss Victoria stayed." "Me too." "Me three," Victoria added, ruffling Mia's hair. Mia grinned and went back to her cookie, completely oblivious to the weight of the moment. But Ethan felt it. The significance of sitting here, in this place, with these people. The journey it had taken to get here. Because it hadn't been easy. There had been fights and fears and moments where it felt like everything was falling apart. There had been distance and doubt and decisions that hurt no matter which way they went. But they'd made it. Not because it was smooth or perfect or destined, but because they'd chosen to keep showing up, to keep trying, to keep believing that what they were building was worth the mess. Later that afternoon, after they'd left the cafe and wandered through the park, Mia asked if they could get ice cream. They found a shop near the river, sat on a bench watching boats drift by while Mia devoured a cone twice the size of her fist. "She's going to crash so hard later," Victoria said. "Worth it," Ethan replied. Victoria leaned against him, and he put his arm around her, and they just sat there while Mia chattered about school and soccer and a book she was reading about dragons. "You know what I realized?" Victoria said quietly. "What?" "I spent so long thinking I had to have everything figured out, that I had to be in control or I'd fall apart. But this," she gestured to Mia, to the river, to everything around them. "This is messy and chaotic and completely out of my control, and it's the best thing I've ever had." Ethan kissed the top of her head. "Yeah, it is." That night, after Mia had crashed exactly like Victoria predicted, Ethan and Victoria sat on the couch with wine and leftovers. "Can I tell you something?" Ethan said. "Always." "When you first showed up at that cafe, I almost didn't invite you to sit." Victoria looked at him. "Why not?" "Because I'd spent 3 years keeping people at a distance. It was easier that way. Safer." "What changed your mind?" "Mia, she saw you and didn't hesitate. And I realized I'd been teaching her to be afraid without meaning to." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "I'm glad you let her invite me." "Me too." "You know what I was thinking that day? When I walked into the cafe?" "What?" that I didn't belong anywhere, that I'd built this whole life, this whole career, and it didn't mean anything because I was completely alone. And now? She looked around the apartment, at Mia's drawings on the fridge, at the pile of shoes by the door, at the life they'd built together. Now I belong somewhere. And it's not because I have it all figured out. It's because I stopped trying to. Ethan pulled her close. You belong here. With us. Always. Promise? Promise. They sat there in the quiet, holding each other, and Ethan thought about all the ways life could surprise you. How you could spend years building walls only to have them knocked down by a 6-year-old in a red coat. How you could lose everything and still find your way back to something worth keeping. A few weeks later, on another Saturday morning, they were back at the cafe. The air had turned crisp, autumn settling in, and the leaves were starting to change. Mia was coloring, Victoria was reading emails, and Ethan was watching them both, feeling impossibly grateful for the ordinary moment. Dad? Mia said, not looking up. Yeah? When I grow up, I want to be like Miss Victoria. Victoria looked up, surprised. Like me how? Brave. You lost everything and you didn't give up. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. I gave up a lot, actually, for a long time. But you came back. Yeah, I did. That's the brave part. Ethan watched Victoria try to hold it together, watched her reach across the table and take Mia's hand. Thank you, she said quietly. Mia just smiled and went back to her coloring. And Ethan realized something in that moment. They weren't a perfect family. They were messy and complicated and still figuring things out as they went. But they were choosing each other every single day, and that mattered more than anything else. Because family isn't about biology or perfection or having everything figured out. It's about showing up. It's about trying. It's about loving people even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. It's about a father who invites a stranger to sit at his table because his daughter sees something he almost missed. It's about a woman who's so afraid of losing everything that she almost walks away from the one thing worth keeping. It's about a little girl who teaches 2 broken adults that love doesn't have to be perfect to be real. And it's about a Saturday morning in a cafe, where 3 people who didn't start as family became one anyway. Not because it was easy, but because it was worth it. As they left the cafe that morning, the snow started to fall again. Just a light dusting, nothing heavy, but enough to remind Ethan of that first Saturday, of how far they'd come, of everything they'd survived to get here. Mia grabbed both their hands, swinging between them as they walked, and Ethan looked at Victoria over Mia's head. She was smiling, and he smiled back. And in that moment, everything felt exactly right. Not perfect, just right. And really, that was all any of them needed.